Through telepractice, distance got shorter, and we are able to connect with any professional from anywhere. So this is something post-COVID we have learned. And at the same time, we need to keep an eye on the prolonged exposure to screen. So what would be the recommended duration of exposure to screens, sir?
For whom?
For children, because they are attending online classes, and let's take children with developmental delays and disabilities. They have to attend school classes, as well as they have to attend if they are taking telepractice. So they're interacting more through the screen. So what would be the recommended screen time?
So screens are bad. Screens are not good. All these things come from what? We need to understand the basics of how we have arrived at that conclusion. And once you understand that, you will be able to understand the guidelines and you will be able to work on the guidelines. Now, we all know that screens are the reality of today's world, and especially COVID has aggravated that need, and we are all working a lot. And thanks to the screen, rather than cribbing about it, a lot of work is still being done.
Yes.
I would say every day at least 4 to 5 patients have benefited from an online consult from people like me as an individual. I'm able to help children with fever and other acute illnesses just because of this. So we cannot. It's not such a bad thing. It's a tool. I can use a knife to cut a vegetable. I can also use a knife to kill somebody. Now it all depends on me. It does not depend on the instrument itself. So it's a tool. It's an instrument, and how we are going to use it is what the consequence is going to be. So don't blame the instrument. Blame the person who's using it. Blame the person, rather than blame the person. Teach the person who's using it to use it carefully. It's a very sharp tool, very, very useful tool, but use it with a lot of thought and with judiciously. Now, having said that, what happens is, why is that screen is an issue? One reason is the screen, when somebody is putting up a rhyme or somebody is watching a program, TV program, there is no interaction. When there is no interaction, it's a non-interactive. There is only one-way communication. That is, the screen gives the communication to me. I tend to keep watching it, and I tend to go into a mode where I don't need to listen, or I forget the world around me and I get into that. So that kind of habit aggravates us, and when we get out of the screen also, that overlaps. A simple example that I would like to give you is, you would have seen many husbands come back from office and keep changing the channel. Now, when they keep changing the channel, they are actually not watching the TV, but it's just coming continuously. And they are just getting into that repetitive behavior of, changing the channel. And often when the wife talks, nobody listens. The husband is not able to listen, because he's not attentive there, because he's neither attentive with the screen. He's just giving, and he just engrosses himself into it and is in kind of a bliss and not thinking about anything. That gives kind of a relaxation to that person. And the person escapes his world into that because of the stress that he or she had. The child also does the same thing, escapes into the screen, especially when it is not interactive. And that is the problem for us, because what it does is, social interaction comes down. Because social interaction comes down, child's spontaneous learning does not happen. And because spontaneous learning does not happen, child falls back in its developmental milestones, and we call it with various names, whatever the names may be. But this is the problem with the screen. Now, if the same screen is interactive, okay, more than being interactive, if there is a human interface in between, where a mother is sitting next to the child and explaining what is happening, and it becomes a educational intervention.